I lost my wife, but I found freedom.
They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I prefer mine piping hot with a side of public humiliation. My name is David Harper, and this is the story of how my perfect marriage became the perfect storm of betrayal, lies, and ultimately, the most satisfying payback I've ever orchestrated. It all started at my sister-in-law's birthday party last September. Victoria, my wife Marta's younger sister, had always been the wild one in the family. Where Marta was polished and professional, Victoria was chaos in designer heels. But that night, as I stood in their parents' backyard watching Marta laugh at something her coworker Jake was whispering in her ear, I felt the first crack in what I thought was solid ice. "David, you look like someone stole your lunch money," Victoria slurred, stumbling over with a martini that had seen better days. "What's wrong? Trouble in paradise?" I forced a smile. "Just tired, long week at the office." "Oh, please," she waved dismissively. "You finance guys are always complaining. At least you're not in advertising like poor Marta. All those late nights, weekend trips, client dinners." She giggled. "Good thing she has Jake to keep her company." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" Victoria's eyes widened slightly, as if she'd said too much. "Nothing, just that they work so well together. Real partnership, you know?" She took another sip and wandered off, leaving me with a growing unease I couldn't shake. That night, lying in bed next to Marta, I replayed the conversation. My wife of 22 years was curled away from me, her phone charging on the nightstand. For the first time in months, I really looked at her. When had she started sleeping so far away? When had she stopped saying goodnight? "Marta," I whispered. How was the party?" "Fine. Go to sleep, David." "Fine." Everything was always fine with Marta these days. Fine was her default response to most of my questions. How was work? Fine. How was dinner with the clients? Fine. How was your weekend trip to Chicago? Fine. I stared at the ceiling, counting the hairline cracks in the plaster. 22 years of marriage, 2 grown kids, a mortgage, shared Netflix passwords, and somehow we'd become strangers who happened to share a bed. The next morning, Marta was already dressed and ready to leave when I stumbled into the kitchen. She looked stunning in a navy blue dress I'd never seen before, her dark hair styled in loose waves. "New dress?" I asked, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, a Father's Day gift from our daughter Amelia that read, "World's Okayest Dad." "This old thing? I've had it forever." She grabbed her keys without looking at me. "I'll be late tonight. Client presentation." "Which client?" For just a second, she hesitated. "Morrison Industries, big account. Jake and I are tag-teaming the pitch." There it was again. Jake Turnbull, the golden boy of T-Bold advertising. Tall, charming, with the kind of easy smile that made clients open their wallets and apparently made my wife light up whenever his name came up. "Will you be home for dinner?" "Probably not. Don't wait up." She kissed my cheek absently and was gone, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume I didn't recognize. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my reflection in the black coffee surface. When had I become this guy? The husband who asked permission for his wife's time, who felt grateful for a distracted peck on the cheek. My phone buzzed with a text from our son Ross. "Dad, can you and Mom make it to dinner Sunday? Sarah wants to announce something." I typed back, "I'll be there. Not sure about mom work stuff." Even as I wrote it, I realized how often I'd been making excuses for Marta's absences lately. How many family dinners, school plays, birthday parties had I attended alone while she was working? That afternoon, I found myself doing something I'd never done before. I called T-Bold Advertising. "Hi, this is David Harper, Marta's husband. I wanted to send flowers to her office for our anniversary, but I want to make sure she'll be there today." The receptionist, sweet as pie, said, "Oh, how lovely. But I'm afraid Marta left about an hour ago for her client meeting. She and Jake went to present to Morrison Industries." "Of course, Morrison Industries. Do you happen to know when they'll be back?" "Well, Jake mentioned they might grab dinner afterward to celebrate if the presentation goes well. You know how these big accounts are?" I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking slightly. There it was, confirmation of what I already suspected but didn't want to believe. My wife was having dinner with another man, and their receptionist knew about it before I did. That evening, I sat in my recliner, pretending to watch television while my mind raced. Every commercial break, I checked my phone. No text from Marta, no calls. At 10 o'clock, I finally texted her. "How did the presentation go?" She responded an hour later. "Great, celebrating with the team, home late." The team, not Jake, the team. I went to bed alone, listening for her car in the driveway. She finally came home at 1:30 a.m., moving quietly through the house like a burglar. When she slipped into bed, I pretended to be asleep. "David?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't trust my voice. She sighed softly and turned away from me. Within minutes, she was asleep, but I lay awake until dawn, staring at those cracks in the ceiling and wondering how many more there were that I hadn't noticed yet. The next few weeks passed in a blur of mounting suspicion and careful observation. I became a detective in my own marriage, noting every inconsistency, every unexplained absence, every new piece of clothing that appeared in Marta's wardrobe. I started paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. The way she guarded her phone, never leaving it unattended. How she'd started working out again after years of claiming she was too busy. The expensive lingerie I found in the laundry lacy black things I'd never seen her wear. "Dad, you look terrible," Amelia said when I met her for lunch the following Tuesday. My daughter had inherited Marta's dark eyes, but thankfully my more straightforward personality. At 24, she was finishing her master's degree in social work and had developed an annoying ability to read people. "Thanks for the confidence boost, sweetheart." "I'm serious. Are you sleeping? You have bags under your eyes and you've barely touched your sandwich." She leaned forward, studying my face. "Is everything okay at home?" I wanted to tell her. God, how I wanted to unload everything. The late nights, the mysterious client dinners, the growing distance between her mother and me. But Amelia adored Marta. They had lunch together every Thursday, went shopping on weekends, shared inside jokes I wasn't part of. "Just work stress," I lied. "The Peterson account is giving me headaches." She didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. We talked about her thesis, her boyfriend Nick, her plans after graduation. Normal father-daughter stuff that should have made me feel better, but somehow made everything worse. How could I tell her that her mother might be having an affair? How could I shatter her image of our family? That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I drove to T-Bold Advertising. The building was a sleek glass tower downtown, the kind of place where creative types in expensive jeans made millions selling ideas. I'd been there before, of course, for company parties and holiday events, but never as a spy. I parked across the street and waited. At 5:30, employees started trickling out. I recognized several faces from those company parties. The quirky art director with purple hair, the account executive who always told inappropriate jokes, the receptionist who'd been so helpful on the phone. At 6:15, I saw them. Marta and Jake emerged from the elevator together, deep in conversation. Even from across the street, I could see the way she leaned toward him, how he touched her arm as they talked. They looked like a couple. They moved like a couple. They walked to Jake's BMW, a silver sedan that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. He opened the passenger door for her, his hand lingering on her back as she got in. I followed them. I felt ridiculous, like a character in a bad TV movie, but I couldn't stop myself. They drove to Chez Laurent, an upscale French restaurant where Marta and I had celebrated our 10th anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. I parked where I could see the restaurant entrance and waited. Through the large windows, I watched them at a corner table. Marta was animated, gesturing with her hands the way she did when she was excited. Jake was leaning forward, hanging on every word. At one point, he reached across the table and touched her hand. That's when I saw her laugh, really laugh, throwing her head back with genuine joy. I couldn't remember the last time I'd made her laugh like that. They stayed for 2 hours. 2 hours of intimate conversation, shared appetizers, and what looked like multiple bottles of wine. When they finally left, Jake's arm was around her waist. I followed them to the Marriott downtown. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I watched my wife of 22 years walk into a hotel with another man. They didn't check in. Jake already had a key card. They went straight to the elevators. I sat in that parking lot for 3 hours, my mind cycling through disbelief, rage, and heartbreak. At 11:30, they came down together. Marta's hair was mussed, her lipstick gone. Jake kissed her goodbye. Not a friendly peck, but a real kiss, the kind that spoke of intimacy and promises. She got into her own car and drove home. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. When I walked into our house at midnight, she was already in bed, pretending to sleep. Her clothes from dinner were in the hamper, and she smelled like shower gel. "How was your evening?" I asked quietly. "Fine," she mumbled. "Boring client dinner. I'm exhausted." I stood there in the dark, looking down at this woman I'd loved for over 2 decades, and realized I didn't know her at all anymore. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to see my brother-in-law, Mike. Technically, he was my ex-brother-in-law. He'd been married to Marta's sister, Linda, before their messy divorce 5 years ago. But Mike and I had remained friends, bonding over our shared experience of loving complicated women from the same family. Mike lived in a small apartment across town, having lost the house in the divorce. He worked as a mechanic and spent his free time restoring classic cars. He was the most honest person I knew, which was probably why Linda had left him for a real estate developer with better prospects. "David!" He looked surprised to see me on his doorstep at 9 in the morning. "Everything okay? Can we talk?" He took one look at my face and stepped aside. "Come in. I'll make coffee." Mike's apartment was sparse but clean, decorated with car magazines and photographs of the Mustang he was rebuilding. We sat at his small kitchen table, and I told him everything. "Jesus, David." Mike ran his hands through his graying hair. "I'm sorry, man. I really am." "What should I do?" "What do you want to do?" "I want to confront her. I want to scream and throw things and demand answers." But what if I'm wrong? What if there's an explanation?" Mike gave me a look that said we both knew there wasn't. "You could hire a private investigator," he suggested. "Get concrete proof." "I don't want to spend money I don't have on pictures of my wife cheating. I saw enough last night." "So what then?" I stared into my coffee cup, seeing my distorted reflection in the dark surface. "I don't know. 22 years, Mike. 2 kids, a whole life together." "Yeah, and she's throwing it away for some pretty boy at work." His bluntness stung, but I needed to hear it. "You know what the worst part is?" I said. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, all the times I made excuses for her behavior, convinced myself everything was fine. That's not your fault, David. You trusted your wife. That's what you're supposed to do in a marriage." I left Mike's apartment with no clear plan, but a growing sense of resolve. I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't keep living this lie. That afternoon, I did something that felt both necessary and terrible. I set up a tracking app on Marta's phone. It was easy. We shared an Apple account, and she'd never been particularly tech-savvy. Within minutes, I could see exactly where she was at any given moment. She was at the office, according to the little dot on my screen. But at 3:30, the dot started moving. Not toward home, not toward any client I knew about, toward the Marriott downtown. I closed my laptop and sat back in my chair feeling sick. There it was, concrete, undeniable proof that my marriage was over. Now I just had to decide what to do about it. The tracking app became my obsession. For 2 weeks, I watched that little dot move around the city, mapping out my wife's secret life. Monday through Friday, she followed predictable patterns: office, lunch spots, client meetings. But Tuesday and Thursday evenings, she went to the Marriott. Sometimes Saturday afternoons, too. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Suspicious, secretive, consumed with gathering evidence of my wife's betrayal. But I couldn't stop. Every confirmation of her lies felt like a small victory, even as it tore my heart apart. It was during one of my surveillance sessions that I discovered something that changed everything. I was scrolling through Jake's social media profiles. Yes, I'd become that pathetic when I found his Facebook page. Jake Turnbull, married to Catherine Kate Turnbull, father to Emma, age 8, and Michael, age 6. His profile picture was a family photo from last Christmas. Jake, a pretty blonde woman, and 2 adorable kids in matching red sweaters. Jake was married. He had children. I stared at that family photo for a long time, studying Kate's face. She looked happy, trusting, completely unaware that her husband was having an affair with my wife. Those kids looked like they worshipped their father. Suddenly, my situation felt bigger than just my marriage. There was another family being destroyed by this affair. Another spouse living in ignorance. Children who had no idea their world was about to implode. I found Kate's Facebook profile easily. She hadn't bothered with privacy settings. Catherine Turnbull, elementary school teacher, volunteer at the local animal shelter, proud mother and wife. Her recent posts were typical suburban mom fare. School events, family dinners, funny things the kids said. 3 days ago, she'd posted a photo of flowers with the caption, "Jake surprised me with roses just because. Lucky me. #blessed, #best husband ever." I felt sick. Jake was buying his wife flowers while sleeping with mine. The casual cruelty of it was staggering. That evening, I made another decision that would have seemed impossible a month ago. I created a fake email account and sent Kate a message. "Dear Mrs. Turnbull, I hope you'll forgive the anonymous nature of this email. but I have information about your husband that I believe you need to know. Jake is having an affair with a coworker named Marta Harper. I have proof, if you're interested, a concerned friend. I stared at the message for 20 minutes before hitting send. Once it was gone, there was no taking it back. I just lobbed a grenade into another family's life. Kate responded within an hour. Who is this? If this is some kind of joke, it's not funny. My husband would never cheat on me. We have a good marriage. I felt a stab of sympathy. I'd probably have responded the same way a month ago. I sent her a photo I'd taken outside the Marriott Jake and Marta kissing goodbye. It was grainy, taken from across the parking lot with my phone, but their faces were clearly visible. Kate didn't respond for 2 days. When she finally did, her message was short. Can we meet? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in her neighborhood, far from downtown, where either of our spouses might see us. I got there early and sat in a corner booth, nursing a coffee and wondering what the heck I was doing. Kate arrived right on time. She was prettier in person than in her photos, with shoulder-length blonde hair and kind eyes that were currently red from crying. She looked around the coffee shop nervously before spotting me. I told her I'd be wearing a blue baseball cap. David? She asked as she approached my table. Kate. Thank you for coming. She sat down across from me, her hands shaking slightly as she placed them on the table. I still can't believe this is happening. Jake and I have been married for 10 years. We have 2 children together. I know. I saw their pictures. They're beautiful kids. How long have you known? About the affair? I started suspecting about a month ago. I've been tracking it for 2 weeks. Tracking it? I told her about the app, the hotel visits, the pattern of lies. She listened in silence, her face growing paler with each detail. Tuesday and Thursday nights, she said quietly. He told me he joined a gym, said he was trying to get back in shape. She laughed bitterly. I was proud of him for taking care of his health. Kate, I'm sorry. I know how much this hurts. Do you? Because right now I feel like my entire life has been a lie. 10 years of marriage and I never suspected anything. What does that say about me? It says you trusted your husband. That's not a character flaw. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. What are you going to do about your wife? I don't know yet. What about you? I don't know either. I keep thinking about Emma and Michael. How do I tell them their father is... She couldn't finish the sentence. We sat in silence for a moment, 2 strangers united by betrayal. There's something else, I said finally. I think they might be planning something. I overheard Marta on the phone last week talking about a trip, something about making it official. Kate's face went white. Official? I don't know what it means, but they seemed excited about it. She stood up abruptly. I have to go. I need to think. Kate, wait. I pulled out a piece of paper with my phone number. If you need to talk, or if you want to coordinate, whatever we're going to do about this. She took the paper and left without another word. That night, I lay in bed next to Marta, listening to her breathe and wondering how much longer I could keep up this charade. She'd come home at her usual time, kissed my cheek absently, and told me about her day, a sanitized version that bore no resemblance to reality. David, she said softly in the dark. Yeah? Are you happy? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? With us, with our marriage, are you happy? I thought about lying, giving her the easy answer she probably wanted. Instead, I said, Are you? She was quiet for so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. Finally, she whispered, I don't know anymore. It was the first honest thing she'd said to me in months. The next morning, Kate called me at work. I confronted him, she said without preamble. How did it go? He denied everything at first, said the photo was fake, that I was being paranoid. But when I told him I knew about the hotel, about the Tuesday and Thursday schedule, he broke down and confessed. What did he say? That it just happened. That he never meant for it to go this far. That he loves me and the kids and wants to work things out. Her voice was bitter. The usual cheater's playbook, I assume. What did you tell him? I told him to get out. He's staying at his brother's place while I figure out what to do next. I felt a surge of admiration for her strength. How are you holding up? I'm angry, really, really angry, and I want him to hurt the way I'm hurting. Kate, I want them both to hurt, David. They destroyed 2 families for their selfish pleasure. Don't you think they should face some consequences? I thought about Marta coming home late, lying to my face, sleeping peacefully beside me while I lay awake wondering what I'd done wrong. Yeah, I said, I do. Good, because I have an idea. Kate's idea was brilliant in its simplicity and devastating in its potential impact. We would expose the affair publicly, systematically, to everyone who mattered in both their personal and professional lives. They want to sneak around and play house, Kate said during our second meeting. Fine, let's give them the attention they deserve. We met at a different coffee shop this time, both of us more composed than during our first encounter. Kate had done her homework. She'd found Marta's social media profiles, identified mutual friends and colleagues, even located our children's contact information. I don't want to involve Ross and Amelia, I said immediately. They don't deserve to be hurt by their mother's choices. Agreed. But Jake's parents, his siblings, his co-workers, they're all fair game. I felt a moment of hesitation. Kate, are you sure about this? Once we start down this road, there's no going back. David, they made their choice when they decided to blow up our marriages. I'm just making sure everyone knows what kind of people they really are. She was right, of course. Marta and Jake had been living double lives, lying to everyone who loved them. Why should we protect their reputations when they'd shown no concern for our feelings? What do you have in mind? Kate opened her laptop and showed me a detailed spreadsheet. She'd listed every important person in Jake's life: family members, colleagues, friends from college, neighbors. Each entry included contact information and preferred social media platform. We start small, she explained. A few key people who will spread the word naturally. Jake's sister, Sarah, is a huge gossip. His boss at the agency values family men. He talks about it constantly in company meetings. His parents are very religious, very traditional. What about Marta? I'll let you handle her contacts. You know better than I do who would be most effective. I thought about Marta's world, her parents, who still believed in the sanctity of marriage and would be horrified by their daughter's behavior. Her colleagues at T-Bold, where office affairs were generally frowned upon. Her book club friends who loved drama, but had always seen Marta as the stable, married one. We need proof, I said. More than just the hotel photos. Leave that to me. Jake still doesn't know I'm onto the full extent of his lies. I can get access to his phone records, credit card statements, maybe even his email if I'm clever about it. Over the next week, Kate proved to be an excellent detective. She forwarded me Jake's credit card statements showing charges at expensive restaurants, hotels, and jewelry stores, all on dates when he'd supposedly been working late or at the gym. She found text message records that showed hundreds of exchanges between Jake and Marta, often late at night and early in the morning. The most damaging evidence came from Jake's email. Kate had guessed his password, their anniversary date, because cheaters are often predictably stupid, and found months of correspondence with Marta. The messages were explicit, romantic, and included detailed plans for their future together. Look at this one, Kate said, showing me her phone screen during one of our strategy sessions. Jake wrote this last week. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Just a few more months and we can be together openly. I love you, man. A few more months. They were planning to leave us. And here's Marta's response, Kate continued. She says she's already talked to a lawyer about divorce proceedings. She wants to make sure she gets half of everything before she tells you. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. Not only was Marta cheating, she was actively planning to divorce me while pretending everything was normal. She was calculating, strategic, making sure she got the maximum financial benefit from ending our marriage. There's more, Kate said grimly. They're planning a weekend trip to Napa Valley next month. Jake told me he has a conference, but according to these emails, they're going to look at houses. They want to move in together. I stared at the evidence of my wife's deception, feeling a cold rage settle in my chest. Marta wasn't just having an affair. She was planning an entire new life without me, and she was going to take half of everything I'd worked for to fund it. When do we start? I asked. Tomorrow. Kate had crafted the perfect opening move. She created an anonymous email account and sent a message to Jake's sister, Sarah, including photos of Jake and Marta together and copies of their most romantic email exchanges. Sarah will call Jake within an hour of reading this, Kate predicted. She'll demand an explanation, and Jake will either have to lie to his sister or confess everything. Either way, the secret is out in his family. I took a different approach with Marta's world. I printed out copies of the hotel receipts and Jake's love letters and mailed them anonymously to 3 people: Marta's mother, her boss at T-Bold, and Jennifer Walsh, the the biggest gossip in her book club. "Why her mother?" Kate asked. "Because Mrs. Rodriguez raised Marta to believe that marriage is sacred. She's going to be devastated, and she's going to call Marta immediately. Marta will know someone is onto her, but she won't know who or how much they know." "And the boss?" "Dave Millen is old school. He doesn't tolerate office affairs, especially when they involve married employees. Even if he doesn't fire them, he'll make their work lives very uncomfortable." "And the book club woman?" I smiled grimly. "Jennifer will have this story spread to every woman in their social circle within 24 hours. Marta's reputation will be destroyed." We synchronized our timing. At exactly 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Kate sent her email to Sarah. At 10:05, I dropped my anonymous packages in the mail. By evening, both our phones were buzzing with activity. Kate called me at 6 p.m., barely able to contain her excitement. "It's working." Sarah called Jake, screaming about family honor and how disappointed their parents would be. Jake tried to deny everything, but Sarah forwarded the emails to their mother. "Mrs. Turnbull called me an hour ago, crying and apologizing for her son's behavior." "What about Jake?" "He's been calling and texting nonstop, begging me not to tell anyone else. He says he'll do anything to save our marriage, that he'll never see Marta again." Too little, too late. My own evening was equally eventful. Marta came home at 5:30, earlier than usual, looking shaken and pale. "How was your day?" I asked innocently. "Fine," she said automatically, then caught herself. "Actually, no. It was strange. My mother called, very upset about something. She wouldn't tell me what, just kept asking if I was happy in my marriage and if I was being faithful to you." "That is strange. What did you tell her?" "The truth, that I love you and would never cheat." She looked directly at me as she said it, and I marveled at how easily the lies came to her. "And work? How was work?" "Also weird. Dave called me into his office and asked about my relationship with Jake. Said someone had raised concerns about our professional conduct." "What kind of concerns?" "He wouldn't say exactly, just that we needed to be more careful about appearances." She sat down heavily at the kitchen table. "David, do you think someone is trying to cause problems for me?" I almost laughed at the irony. "Why would anyone want to cause problems for you, sweetheart?" "I don't know. But between my mother and Dave, it feels like people are watching me, looking for something wrong." "Well," I said, turning back to the dishes, "as long as you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about, right?" She didn't answer. That night, Marta's phone buzzed constantly with calls and texts. She ignored most of them, but I could see the stress building in her face. Finally, around 10 p.m., she answered a call from Jennifer Walsh. I could only hear Marta's side of the conversation, but it was enough. "Jennifer, slow down. What are you talking about? What photos? That's impossible. Someone is playing a cruel joke." "No, I can't explain them because I haven't seen them." Can you forward them to me?" A long pause while Marta looked at her phone. Then, "Oh my God, Jennifer, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. Someone is trying to frame me." "Yes, I know how that sounds, but it's true. Please don't share these with anyone else, please." But I knew it was too late. Jennifer had already shared them with everyone. By morning, Marta's affair would be the talk of her entire social circle. I went to bed that night feeling satisfied for the first time in weeks. The plan was working perfectly. But Kate and I were just getting started. The next few days were a masterclass in social destruction. Kate and I had unleashed forces we couldn't control, and we watched with fascination as our spouses' carefully constructed lives began to crumble. Jake was the first to crack. According to Kate, he showed up at her house on Wednesday evening, drunk and desperate. He was a mess, she told me over the phone. Crying, begging, promising to quit his job and move away from Marta. He said his parents aren't speaking to him. His boss is considering firing him, and his brother won't let him stay at his place anymore. What did you tell him? That he should have thought about consequences before he decided to cheat on his wife and children. Marta was handling the pressure differently. She became paranoid, suspicious of everyone around her. She started coming home early from work, avoiding social situations, and constantly checking her phone for new messages or posts. "Someone is targeting me," she told me Thursday night. "Someone with access to private information. David, I think my phone might be hacked." "That's terrible," I said, not mentioning that I was tracking her location in real time. "Have you called the police?" "And tell them what? That someone is spreading rumors about me having an affair? They'll just ask if the rumors are true." "Are they?" She looked at me sharply. "Of course not. You know me better than that." But I was done pretending to know her at all. Friday brought the next phase of our plan. Kate had discovered that T-Bold Advertising was pitching a major account to a conservative family-owned company whose CEO was very vocal about traditional values. She'd also learned that Jake and Marta were scheduled to make the presentation together. What if the CEO received an anonymous tip about the moral character of the people representing T-Bold? Kate suggested. I thought about it. That could backfire. It might look like we're trying to sabotage their careers out of spite. David, they're already sabotaging their own careers. We're just making sure the right people have all the information. She was right. I helped Kate craft a professional, factual email to the CEO, including copies of Jake and Marta's romantic correspondence and photos of them together. We didn't editorialize or make accusations, we just presented the evidence and let him draw his own conclusions. The presentation was scheduled for Monday morning. By Sunday evening, T-Bold had lost the account, and both Jake and Marta had been suspended pending an internal investigation. Marta came home that night looking defeated. She'd been crying, and her usual composure was completely gone. I've been suspended, she said without preamble. What? Why? The Morrison Industries CEO received some kind of anonymous package about me and Jake. He called Dave and said he couldn't work with people who don't respect the sanctity of marriage. She laughed bitterly. The sanctity of marriage. Can you believe that? What was in the package? Photos, private emails. Someone has been spying on us, David. Someone with serious technical skills and a lot of time on their hands. Us? She caught her mistake immediately. Me and Jake. Someone who wants to destroy our professional relationship. Is there a professional relationship to destroy? She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Suspicion, maybe, or recognition. David, are you asking me if I'm having an affair with Jake? Are you? No, absolutely not. We're colleagues and friends, nothing more. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos Kate had taken, Marta and Jake kissing in the hotel parking lot. Then what's this? The color drained from her face. Where did you get that? Does it matter? Is this you, Marta? Is this my wife kissing another man? She sat down heavily, all pretense finally gone. David, I can explain. I'm listening. It just happened. We didn't plan it. We were working late. We had too much wine, and one thing led to another. How many times did one thing lead to another? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. How long, Marta? How long have you been lying to my face? She started crying then, real tears that might have moved me a month ago. 6 months, maybe 7. David, I never meant for this to happen. I love you. You love me? You love me so much you've been planning to divorce me and take half of everything I own? Her face went white. How do you know about that? I know about all of it. The hotel rooms, the credit card charges, the emails about your future together. I know you've been to see a lawyer. I know about the house hunting trip to Napa Valley. She stared at me in shock. You've been spying on me. I've been trying to figure out why my wife of 22 years suddenly became a stranger. Turns out she didn't become a stranger. She just got better at hiding who she really was. Marta wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. Fine. You want the truth? I'll give you the truth. I'm not happy, David. I haven't been happy for years. Jake makes me feel alive again, makes me feel beautiful and desired. When I'm with him, I remember who I used to be before I became just a wife and mother. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. What was I supposed to say? That I was bored? That our marriage felt like a business arrangement? That I wanted more excitement in my life? Yes, that's exactly what you were supposed to say. We could have worked on it, gone to counseling, taken a vacation, done something to fix whatever was broken. Some things can't be fixed, David. You're right. Some things can't be fixed, like trust, like respect, like 22 years of marriage that you threw away for some excitement. She stood up, her tears gone, replaced by cold anger. You want to know the real truth? I was going to tell you after the holidays. I was going to ask for a divorce and try to do this civilly. But now that you've been spying on me, now that you've sabotaged my career and humiliated me publicly, all bets are off. I sabotaged your career? You did that yourself when you decided to sleep with a married coworker. You sent those emails to Morrison Industries. You've been working with Kate Turnbull to destroy both of us. I didn't bother denying it. Jake destroyed his own marriage when he decided to cheat on his wife and children. You destroyed our marriage when you decided I wasn't enough for you anymore. Fine. You want a war, David? You'll get one. I'll take you for everything you're worth. Good luck with that. I've already moved our assets into accounts you can't touch. I've documented every penny you've spent on your affair. I've got evidence of your adultery that will make any divorce proceeding very interesting. She stared at me with something close to hatred. You bastard. You've been planning this. I've been protecting myself from a wife who was planning to betray me financially as well as emotionally. I want you out of this house. This is my house too, Marta. I'm not going anywhere. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Then I'll leave. But this isn't over, David. Not even close. After she left, I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of our marriage wedding photos on the refrigerator, her coffee mug in the sink, her jacket hanging on the back of a chair. I should have felt victorious. The truth was finally out, the lies were over, and I'd successfully protected myself from her attempts to take advantage of me financially. Instead, I felt empty. 22 years of marriage, over. 2 kids who were about to learn their parents were getting divorced. A life I'd built that was now completely demolished. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Jake showed up drunk at my house again. I called the police. How are you holding up? I texted back, she knows everything. It's over. I'm sorry, David. I know this is hard. It was hard, but it was also necessary. Marta had made her choice months ago when she decided Jake was more important than our marriage. I'd just made sure she faced the consequences of that choice. Now, I had to figure out how to build a life from the wreckage she'd left behind. The next few weeks passed in a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and awkward conversations with friends and family. Ross and Amelia took the news about as well as could be expected. They were shocked, hurt, and angry, but they rallied around me once they understood the full scope of their mother's betrayal. I can't believe Mom did this, Amelia said when I told her and Ross everything over dinner. I mean, I knew you guys had been distant lately, but I never thought she'd cheat. Ross was more direct. She's been lying to all of us for months. How do we know anything she's ever told us was true? I tried to be diplomatic. Your mother made some bad choices, but she's still your mother. This is between her and me. Dad, she was planning to take half of everything and leave you with nothing, Amelia pointed out. That's not just a bad choice. That's calculated. They weren't wrong. The more I learned about Marta's plans, the more I realized how thoroughly she'd been preparing to betray me. She'd consulted with a divorce attorney, opened secret credit cards, and even started moving money into accounts I didn't know about. Fortunately, my own preparations had been more thorough. I documented everything, protected our assets, and gathered enough evidence of her adultery to ensure the divorce would be settled in my favor. Jake and Marta's affair, meanwhile, wasn't surviving the pressure of being exposed. According to Kate, Jake had been fired from T-Bold after the Morrison Industries debacle, and he was struggling to find new employment. Word of his affair had spread through the advertising community, and his reputation was destroyed. He keeps calling me, begging for another chance, Kate told me during one of our regular check-ins. He says he'll do anything to save our marriage, but then in the next breath he asks if I've heard from Marta. What do you tell him? That he made his choice, and now he has to live with it. Marta, for her part, had moved in with Victoria temporarily. She'd also been fired from T-Bold, and she was having trouble finding a new job. The advertising world was smaller than she'd realized, and her affair with Jake had made her toxic to potential employers. I might have felt sorry for her if she hadn't tried one final, desperate gambit to salvage her situation. It was a Thursday evening in November when she showed up at the house unannounced. I was in the garage, working on some home repairs, when I heard her car in the driveway. "David," she called out as she entered through the garage door. "Can we talk?" I looked up from the shelf I was installing. She looked terrible, thin, tired, with dark circles under her eyes. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing old jeans and a sweater I recognized from years ago. "What do you want, Marta?" "I want to apologize, and I want to see if we can work things out." I set down my drill and gave her my full attention. "Work things out?" "I made a mistake, David. A huge, terrible mistake. But we have 22 years together. We have children, a history, a life. That has to count for something." "It counted for something. Right up until you decided Jake was more important. Jake and I are over. It's finished. He was a fantasy, a midlife crisis. You're my reality, my partner, my husband. I was your husband. Now I'm the guy you cheated on and tried to financially destroy." She stepped closer, and I could see tears in her eyes. "I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. But people make mistakes, David. People have affairs and then come to their senses. We can get past this if we both want to. What about the divorce lawyer? What about the secret bank accounts? What about planning to take half of everything I own? I was angry and scared. I thought you were going to leave me when you found out, so I wanted to protect myself. But I never actually went through with any of it. That was a lie, and we both knew it. She'd already moved thousands of dollars into accounts I couldn't access, and she'd been actively preparing to file for divorce when our plan had exposed her affair. Marta, even if I could forgive the cheating, I can't forgive the lies. You looked me in the eye every day for months and lied to me. You planned to destroy my life and take everything I'd worked for. That's not a mistake. That's a betrayal so fundamental that it changes who you are as a person. So that's it? 22 years and you're just going to throw it all away? I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that. She was quiet for a long moment, and I thought maybe she was finally going to accept reality. Instead, she played her last card. What about Ross and Amelia? They want us to work things out. They don't want to come from a broken home. Ross and Amelia are adults, and they understand exactly what happened here. They're not going to guilt me into staying married to someone who betrayed me. Fine. Her sadness disappeared, replaced by cold anger. If you won't work with me, I'll make sure you regret it. I'll fight you on everything. The house, the retirement accounts, alimony, everything. I'll make this divorce so expensive and so ugly that you'll wish you'd just forgiven me. Go ahead. I've got documentation of every dollar you spent on your affair, every lie you told, every plan you made to betray me. You want to make this ugly? I'll show the judge exactly what kind of person you are. She stared at me for a moment, then turned and walked back to her car without another word. I finished installing the shelf, thinking about the woman I'd just talked to. She looked like Marta, sounded like Marta, but she wasn't the woman I'd married 22 years ago. That woman had been kind, honest, and loyal. This woman was calculating, manipulative, and willing to destroy anyone who stood in her way. Maybe she'd always been this person, and I'd just been too blind to see it. Or maybe the affair had changed her, turned her into someone I didn't recognize. Either way, she wasn't someone I could be married to anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Jake showed up at Emma's school today trying to pick her up. I had to call the police. This is getting scary. I called her immediately. Are you okay? Are the kids okay? We're fine. The school security stopped him before he got near Emma. But David, he's not handling this well. He's drinking heavily, he's lost his job, and now he's starting to blame everyone but himself for what happened. What do you mean? He called me last night, drunk, saying that you and I ruined his life. That if we just minded our own business, he and Marta would be happy together by now. A chill ran down my spine. Kate, you need to be careful. If he's drinking and looking for someone to blame. I know. I've already talked to the police about getting a restraining order. Good. And Kate, thank you. For what? For helping me see the truth. For having the courage to expose what they were doing. I know it wasn't easy for you either. We helped each other, David. And we did the right thing. After we hung up, I sat in my garage, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, thinking about the chain of events that had brought me to this point. 6 months ago, I'd been a happily married man with a stable life and a secure future. Now I was getting divorced, my wife was essentially unemployed, and her lover was spiraling into what sounded like a dangerous breakdown. But I wasn't sorry. Marta had made her choice when she decided our marriage wasn't enough for her. Jake had made his choice when he decided to pursue a married woman. They'd both been willing to destroy 2 families for their own selfish desires. Kate and I had simply made sure they faced the consequences of those choices. My phone rang. It was Ross. Dad, I just got off the phone with Mom. She says you refused to reconcile. That's right. Good. Sarah and I were worried you might actually consider taking her back. Not a chance, son. Good, because what she did to you, to all of us, is unforgivable. You deserve better. As I hung up, I realized Ross was right. I did deserve better. I deserved a partner who was honest, loyal, and committed to our relationship. I deserved someone who would talk to me about problems instead of sneaking around behind my back. Marta hadn't been that person for a long time, maybe ever. But now, for the first time in months, I was free to find someone who was. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Marta got much less than she'd planned, thanks to the evidence of her affair and her attempts to hide assets. Jake moved to another state, still trying to rebuild his career and his relationship with his children. Kate and I remained friends, bonded by our shared experience, but smart enough not to complicate things with romance. We'd both learned the hard way what betrayal looked like, and we needed time to heal before trusting anyone new. As I signed the final papers, I thought about the day this all started. Victoria's birthday party, when I'd first noticed something wrong. If someone had told me then that my marriage would be over within 6 months, I'd have laughed at them. But now, sitting in my lawyer's office with my freedom officially restored, I realized I wasn't sad about the end of my marriage. I was relieved. For the first time in years, I could be myself again. I didn't have to wonder what my wife was really doing, who she was really with, or whether she was lying to my face. I didn't have to pretend everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I was free, and that felt like the best revenge of all.